Good afternoon and welcome to the latest edition of Lunchtime Learnings. I'm delighted to have a returning guest again, Steve Carroll from Australia, General Manager of the agency, facilitator of Lowe's real estate conferences and coached thousands of agents in the UK, Australia, Dubai, and also been included for, I think, the fourth time in the top 50 of the most influential real estate leaders in 2023 in Australia, and also has a digital consultancy as well. Steve, thanks very much for joining me. It's good to see you. We caught up in London not long ago.
Absolutely.
So thank you for...
And of course, the big thing, Stephen, in the introduction that you didn't mention was I'm English.
Hey, there you go. There you go. So this morning, afternoon, evening, whenever you're watching this, we're going to discuss 6 trends that are currently emerging in Australia that UK agents should find interesting. So Steve, let's go. Number 1.
Well, the first thing that's really interesting is I spent 10 years working at realestate.com.au. Realestate.com.au is the equivalent to Rightmove, so absolutely dominates the industry here in Australia. And one of the interesting trends that is emerging is a strategy that realestate.com.au are executing, which seems to be working really well. And that is building a relationship directly with homeowners in Australia. So 1/3 of all homeowners here in Australia, Stephen, 1/3 have claimed their property. And what I mean by claim their property is they've said to realestate.com.au, I own that property and I'd like you to share with me on a weekly basis anything that I might find interesting. Now, I think realestate.com.au are doing a tremendous job at building relationships directly with homeowners here in Australia. And myself, I've claimed my property. And without question, the information that they're furnishing me or giving to me on a weekly basis is really interesting. It smacks of authority. It smacks of trustworthiness. And the reason I want to bring this up, Stephen, is, well, where is this going to go? Because obviously a lot of real estate leaders here in Australia are thinking, well, isn't that the job of a real estate agent to build a connection and give personalized, tailored information to homeowners? And I don't think we're too far away from realestate.com.au actually monetizing that and starting to market to me as a homeowner insurance, mortgage opportunities, car loans. And dare we say, Stephen, when you're ready to sell your house, let us know first. And obviously that potentially could be a big threat to real estate agents here in Australia. But I have to say, the consumers that I talk to love it. They love the exchange of saying, yes, that's my property, for all of that information. And that's one of the trends of 5 or 6 that hopefully we can talk about this evening here in Australia and in the morning in London, Stephen.
Okay, so coming back to that, I totally agree that agents should be personalizing and tailoring stuff to their homeowners here. What sort of things should agents, obviously they're going to be wearing, we've got the equivalent here of Rightmove doing that. And, there's thoughts that they are going to go down that line and maybe already starting going that line with mortgages and stuff like that. If I'm an agent, what sort of stuff should I be sending out personalized stuff to customers, my clients in the area?
Well, it's a great question, Stephen. When I was at realestate.com and I was the sales director there for 10 years, and we would spend millions and millions and millions of dollars every single year researching the market, trying to understand what was in the minds of buyers, what was in the minds of sellers, what they wanted to see on realestate.com.au, what they expected to get from real estate agents. And one of the stats that I always remember is this stat. Sellers would say the most stressful part of selling a house is choosing an agent. Now, the reason why that is above anything else in the eyes of the thousands and thousands of homeowners that we spoke to when I was REA. The reason why choosing an agent is so stressful is if you choose a really good agent and you get it right, that might actually make you an extra $20,000 or $30,000. But if you choose an average or mediocre agent, then you might lose $20,000 or $30,000. So the pressure is on. So in answer to your question, what I think that agents should be doing, whether or not it's in the UK, and I worked with hundreds of real estate agents when I was living and working in the UK, whether or not it's the UK or the Middle East, where I've also worked, or Australia and New Zealand, I think that real estate agents need to prove to buyers and sellers that they are a credible voice in the area that they operate. So if you're a real estate agent in the beautiful town of Stamford, Lincolnshire, which is where I'm from, I would be challenging every single real estate agent in Stamford or agency to position yourself as the voice of authority. Position yourself as somebody who knows their stuff, who is trustworthy. Now, you know, how you go about doing that, well, we'd need a whole afternoon to talk about that. But what I'm noticing here in Australia is the agents that speak at ARIC, the agents that get invited to speak at conferences in the United States, the agents that win awards are those that have positioned themselves as the mayor of that town when it comes to real estate.
Brilliant. Thank you. Okay, so trend 2 is increasing number of companies offering agents the opportunity to run their own business.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is a trend that and I'm obviously not as close to the UK market as I once was, because I left the UK in 2006. So this may be something similar. And in fact, all the trends that we talk about might be similar to the UK. But one of the things that I've noticed over the last 2 or 3 years is the appetite from real estate agents who are good at what they do, the appetite of going off on their own, but tying in or working with a company like the agency, which is where I've been for the last 15 months. And there's plenty of other companies. The agency is just one, which I'll obviously plug because I'm working there. But the number of agents who have said, look, I don't want to work at a big franchise group at the anymore. I want to go off and do my own thing. But I want to be able to look over my shoulder and have the weight of a big organization who can look after all of my administration, all of my training, all of my technology requirements. They create a culture where I can share with other real estate business owners ideas of what's working and what's not working. And the reason why this is interesting, Stephen, is I think it's only 3 or 4 years ago where this trend just didn't exist. You either worked for an independent real estate office or you worked for a big franchise group like LJ Hooker or Ray White. But without question, we're seeing an increasing number of companies like the agency emerge to look after an increasing number of agents who want to go off on their own, run their own business, however they want to run it, but be able to plug into a trustworthy organization like the agency or like the plethora of others that have appeared over the last 36 months.
Yeah, so we're seeing the same here. You've got the likes of the EXP, Keller Williams. There's the agency UK here. You've got the estate agency. You've got the property agents. I mean, there are more and more and more that we're hearing about every day. So it's something that is incredibly popular here, and there has been a big explosion here as well with that. Very much so.
Interesting. And I think my observation of this trend is this type of way of working requires the agent to be self-motivated, disciplined, the ability to get up in the morning and go, the ability to learn, to be curious and inquisitive about changing technology. Where I see this model not working is for those agents who just want an easy life, because once you step out of a big franchise group like Ray White and run your own business, you're on your own. And those that succeed are those that have got that momentum to get up and go. Those that fail with this model are those that, I mean, to be honest with you, have a lack of willingness to learn and probably a bit lazy too.
Okay, interesting. Right, number 3, digital shop windows. So
yeah, well, this is, I'm actually really pleased to talk about this because I spoke at ARIC, which is the huge real estate conference here down in Australia every single May. I think you may have been to ARIC once, Stephen. And I spoke.
Into a secret, I'm coming in May
This year. Excellent. Yeah. Well, I spoke at ARIC back in 2018 and backed with a lot of research from realestate.com.au, we could see a trend emerging where buyers and sellers, but particularly sellers, were using portals like realestate.com.au to decide on who they were going to shortlist as an agent to invite to do an appraisal. And so I started talking at ARIC about the importance of having a digital shop window for yourself that made people want to stop and take notice of you and find out more. And I often refer now, Stephen, to this as your Netflix, that sort of Netflix moment. So, you know, on a Saturday night when you're sitting there and you're thinking, right, what am I going to watch tonight? And you flick through Netflix or BritBox or whatever your preferred provider is, and you give each film about 3 seconds and you make a decision whether or not it's a plus or whether or not it's a minus. And what I'm noticing now, finally, driven by a lot of the younger generation of real estate agents, they're putting as much effort to make sure they look good online as they do with the suit they wear, the car they drive, and so on and so forth. So the digital shop window seems to be a trend that people are putting effort and energy into, and that is the third trend.
Fantastic. So, Steve, number 4, leaders wrestling with change management. What's all that about, please?
Well, it's an interesting one because I've just talked about the fact that there's this younger generation of real estate agents who understand the importance of looking good online because they understand that it is without question part of the research behavior of sellers when they work out who they're going to choose to invite into their house to appraise their property. But the bottom line is here in Australia, the average real estate agent is still around that 54-year, 55-year age, and many of them. And I'd just like to add, Stephen, I was born in the 1960s, so I'm not being rude about this generation. I'm part of this generation. But one of the challenges that leaders have here in Australia is getting this big cohort of real estate agents who are in their 40s, 50s, and 60s to buy into the plethora of great technology that's coming through, the plethora of different ways of doing things. And I mean, artificial intelligence, without question, is going to be a big game changer in real estate right across the planet. And what I'm noticing here is it's like a 100-meter Olympic sprint where you've got all of the big brands on the starting line and they're all hoping to get to the finishing line, and the finishing line is bringing their organization into 2024 as opposed to allowing real estate agents to continue to operate how they've done for the last decade or so. So very, very interesting. pick of the bunch, I reckon that Ray White are doing a really, really good job on that front. I think that the agency, and maybe I'm a little bit biased, I think that their curiosity around doing things differently would put them in the front of the pack as well. But that would be my fourth trend of what's happening here in Australia, Stephen.
Okay, can I just decipher that a little bit? So you talked about AI, and obviously I'm seeing a lot, and I know Sam McLean there is doing a hell of a lot on AI out in Australia, and I know we've got people like Paul Long here also starting to do a lot and talk about it. What other trends that you're seeing with AI that are working?
Well, I think the biggest thing with artificial intelligence is the fact that it will save people time if they are inquisitive and curious enough to play around with artificial intelligence and what it can do. So it's not so much for me right now about well, he's doing this or she's doing that. It's more about getting people to change their mindset that artificial intelligence is not going to replace a real estate agent. You can't break artificial intelligence, and it's getting a mindset of this is a tool that can help me as a real estate agent or a real estate leader save time, be more efficient, and probably enjoy more of a work-life balance. And I think that once that mindset's accepted, then you can delve into what it can do more deeply. And of course, it's like everything, Stephen, it's going to be different for each business depending on how the business operates. The saving of time in property management is going to be different to the saving of time in sales. So, going back to that 100-meter sprint, and it's a race between all the big brands here on who can bring their culture and who can bring their environment into 2024 first, because that obviously creates a lot of opportunities. AI is just one of a number of things. Getting agents to use CRM systems really effectively and really efficiently is another. Getting agents to use technology to personalize communication is another, because at the end of the day, we talked earlier on about realestate.com.au doing a really good job in this space. If they have a stronger relationship with buyers and sellers because they personalize better than the local real estate agent, that's not great for the industry, because what you're doing is you're giving more power to the portals that are already very, very powerful. So that's one of the trends that, without question, I'm observing here.
Okay, so, and it's really interesting you say about personalization. So my girlfriend's just sold her property and she's registered with agents in the UK, and she knows 2 or 3 of the agents, and she still gets Dear Mrs. She doesn't get, and she knows them personally, so she doesn't get Dear Justine, and that really upsets her. She keeps on saying to me, I know them. Why are they sending me Dear Mrs.? I mean, it's just absolutely ridiculous. There's
absolutely.
no personalization.
Absolutely. So one of the things that, and as I say, I left realestate.com 3 years ago. So I'm not saying this because I've got any vested interest in giving them a plug, but you've got to give them a pat on the back where they deserve it. So not only is all the weekly communication that I've got addressed to Hi Steve, they are sending me information like the number of people that are looking for a property like yours in the suburb that you live in is 415 this week, compared to 390 the week before, compared to 700 the week before that. And, the personalization I'm getting from realestate.com.au is a property like yours, Steve, sold at auction yesterday for this price. If you want to get a valuation of your property, click here. and it's all relevant. It's all accurate. And am I getting that from the scores of real estate agents around where I live? Absolutely not. And that's why I talk about the fact that the big business leaders here in Australia know that this race of bringing their culture, bringing their company up to 2024, it is a critical race to win. You don't want to be coming last.
Okay, so out of all the AI tools that you've seen, is there any that are working well with Australian agents? So I'll give you an example. I've come across a video editing tool called, I think it's called Video.ai, which, so for example, this podcast will then go to them and they will edit it into 21 minutes sections effectively, and that saves so much time. It's incredible. Are you seeing anything that you would recommend agents looking at?
I think the one that I particularly like is an Australian company called Rita. And what Rita does is Rita reads CRM systems so just imagine that I'm a real estate agent and I log off on it's Thursday night here. So I log off tonight, Thursday night. I go into work on Friday morning and I've got all of these people in my CRM. Like, well, who do I call first? And what Rita does is Rita basically reads the CRM data that's been put in by the agent and makes a recommendation to the agent as to who they should be calling first and for what reason. So that is prioritizing an agent's time like never before. And so that's one of my favorite tools that, again, I know real estate groups that have use or are paying a subscription for this service, but there are still agents within those offices that are not using it. They're ignoring it and they're just doing real estate how they've done for the last decade. They start at the A's and they get to the D's and then they go and have a coffee and then they get to the J's. And by the time they get to the K's, they're over calling people and nothing happens until the next day. So that would probably be one of my favorites, Stephen.
Okay, and I know in the UK, John Paul started something called Prospecting Pro, which is something on the similar lines, helping people understand, who's the most likely next seller that's going to come to, who you should be calling, what your call lists are on that day. So a little shout out there for John Paul, and I'm not getting any commission. So you're welcome to have a look at it and make your own mind up on that as well.
Well, that's a lovely segue, actually, Stephen, into another trend that I'm noticing, and that is an appetite from the Australian real estate industry to learn from other countries and learn from agents who are selling and listing property in different parts of the world. And so, once upon a time here in Australia, ARIC was all you needed. But I think now people here are saying, no. We want to tap into people like John Paul. We want to tap into people who are doing things in the United States. We want to bring them to our shores. And one of the top trainers down here is a lady called Sherry Storer, and Sherry right now is trying to pull together a conference in 2025 in Italy, involving Australian real estate agents, New Zealand real estate agents, and European real estate agents, so that sort of UN collaboration, discussion, and talking can come to the fore. So that was one of the trends that I was going to talk about.
Okay, that's interesting. So I look forward to hearing more on that from Sherry. And then the final one that you're noticing.
Well, the final one is, Australia did it actually pretty hard during COVID. I mean, look, Melbourne had I think 249 days of lockdown. Melbourne, as a city, was locked down more than any other place in the world. And one of the things that I'm noticing, and maybe that's one of the reasons why real estate businesses are wanting to expand and go overseas and learn. But the charity bike ride that I pull together every year, where I just get a bunch of real estate agents of all levels of fitness and age to cycle across Thailand to raise money for a kids charity called Hands Across the Water. Well, we've got one ride, or we had one ride for February 2025. And for the first time ever, it's sold out. And the appetite of people here to get out of Australia and travel is massive. So we've put on a second bike ride, which is going to kick off again in Thailand, March 2025. And we're already 60 to 70% of that ride sold out. So the Aussies want to explore. I think that the whole COVID thing is now history. And unlike the UK, where you can be in Prague or Berlin or Amsterdam on a plane in 50 minutes, obviously here in Australia, it's a bit of a bigger gig. And that's one of the other things that I'm noticing, you know, as I work and do what I'm doing, Stephen.
Brilliant. Well, look, thank you for sharing the 6 trends. Just want to talk about, because I know you're very big on technology. I know we've discussed AI, and you've discussed CRM systems. Any other technology there in Australia that you think, wow, this is great, that the UK should be looking at?
I'm not sure there's anything specific, and that's because I don't understand the UK market as well as I do. So, you know, a lot of what I might talk about might already be in existence in the UK. But without question, that understanding around people doing research online, and so digitally you've got to look outstanding. You wouldn't go to work, you wouldn't go to a listing presentation with a shabby old suit and dirty shoes. And so why would you have a digital presence that's anything but that is anything but dynamic? Really, really important. My feel is, and here's a bit of a test of my knowledge from doing schooling in the UK. You know, we had the Industrial Revolution, where we went from horse and carriage to trains. We had the invention of electricity, which changed the world. We had the invention of the internet, which was another huge landmark in the duration of the planet. I think that artificial intelligence is as big as all of those big moments of change. And, you know, certainly what I would say to any real estate agent, you've got to be curious. You've got to be inquisitive about what AI can do. If you haven't played around with ChatGPT, you're already behind the 8 ball. Get curious, get interested, and have a go. And hey, look, Stephen, if I might just finish off by saying I'm actually going to be spending 3 or 4 months in the UK. I'm coming over in April, so I unfortunately won't be seeing you in Arik. But I'm coming over to look at this model of agents going off on their own on behalf of the agency. And, you know, I'm hoping to learn a lot more about the UK industry and meet lots of different people. And if anybody's listening to this podcast, webinar, and would like to grab a coffee and chat with me, I'd love to do that.
Brilliant. So I wanted to ask you one final question. How do they get hold of you, Steve, to arrange that coffee?
Yeah, well, the best way is just to go onto LinkedIn. So I'm a big user of LinkedIn. I think it's an amazing tool that is underused by a lot of real estate agents. Interestingly, REA at their awards recently voted a lady called Sarah Hackett as the most influential female in real estate. And people should Google Sarah Hackett. We probably should get her on one of these shows, Stephen.
Okay.
She gets so much business and so much great publicity from the way that she uses LinkedIn. And I'm a big advocate of that particular platform. And I think real estate agents need to get really switched on to that. But they can contact me through LinkedIn, Steve Carroll, RRL. And I'm looking forward to catching up with people, especially if they're a Peterborough United supporter or a Gunners supporter.
Well, you won't be meeting me then.
Well, we've already said that.
You never said that before, right? So just coming back one thing, if it's okay, you talked about your digital profile looking outstanding. What does outstanding look like in Steve Carroll's eyes, please?
Well, I think the first thing that is really, really important is you've got when people find you online, in the first 20 words, the first 25 words that you use have to be compelling, have to be impactful, have to be something that says to a seller or buyer, I want to find out more about this person. And that's why I call it the Netflix trailer. You flick through all of these videos, films, and you make a decision whether or not it's worth watching or it's not worth watching. Real estate agents, think about that in the context of what you do. When people land on your LinkedIn profile, when they land on your profile on your website, or realestate.com.au in the case of Australians, is it dull, boring, samey, with words that everybody else uses? Or in the case of Sarah Hackett, if you check Sarah out, you're going to read more about her because of those first 20 words she uses on all the platforms that people are likely to find her online, Stephen. That's really, really important. And if I can add a second thing, drives me crazy. Once upon a time, if you wanted to find somebody's number, you used the yellow pages or the white pages. And you and I are both old enough to remember those big chunky things that you used to flick through. I reckon the younger generation, the 20s and 30s, are using platforms like LinkedIn. You will be surprised at the number of agents that, if you go into their contact details on LinkedIn, they're missing information. The information is from where they used to work. And what a first impression that is. It's an appalling one. So your Netflix trailer, your contact details are probably two of a number that, again, if people join me for coffee, I'd love to share with them plenty of others as well, mate.
Brilliant. Well, look, thanks so much for your time. Please, if you're watching this, take Steve up on this offer. He's got years and years of experience, loads of stuff. I know he's very open and happy to share with you. So please get into contact with Steve. Steve, thanks so much for your time. Really grateful. And please, if you're watching it, like it, share it, tell everybody else about it. I'll be really grateful and look forward to seeing you on the next one. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Stephen.
You're welcome.